maybe the sun will stay out this time. Welcome, witches. I'm Nike the Warrior Witch, if you're new here, and if you're not, welcome back. Today I want to talk about how my practice has changed over the years. I think that when we are new into our practice, it's easy to get the idea in our heads that you pick a path, you stick to it, you become an expert, a master, whatever, and then you just go forever and you're great. And the reality is that it changes all the time. And even right now, I'm kind of in a transitional period. So what I tell you now is likely not going to be the same in 6 months. So keep in mind that what I'm telling you about my practice in the past, and specifically my practice right now, is subject to change, and I'm expecting to change. So just be aware that it is a step along the journey to illustrate how things will continue to change. I've also got my notes here in my notebook, so I'm going to try to keep on track and make sure I've got everything down. I'm probably going to miss stuff, that's okay. So let's get into it. I'm going to start way back, specifically during high school. I didn't really grow up with religion, and so a lot of my life was very atheist, agnostic, didn't really know what I was going to believe in, but I had more pressing things to be concerned with, so I just didn't think about it. But during high school, I started to have some interesting experiences. When I really first entered high school, when I was a freshman, I was dating a girl who was Wiccan, and so I got interested in it and I started looking into that, and for a brief period of time I was practicing some solitary Wicca. So like I kind of jumped into the pagan space pretty quick, but something about Wicca just never really vibed with me. There's nothing wrong with it, it just definitely wasn't for me, so I didn't stick with it for too long. I had my best friend at the time during high school. We kind of considered ourselves twins. Get in. You can't be for real. Anyway, we called ourselves twins because we would dress the same, we acted the same, we even looked kind of alike to a certain extent, and the two of us started to have weird experiences together where there was a week straight where we dressed the exact same, like the full outfit. There was even a day towards the end of the week that we were like, there's no way they're going to be able to do this, there's no way they can predict this, I'm going to dress super outlandish and weird, and that'll be that, that'll end the streak. And then we showed up in the same exact outfit. Anyway, so that was one thing. We started having like dreams about each other, and it was like some prophetic stuff. Like I had a dream that they called me saying that their partner had broken up with them, and then 1 or 2 days later that did actually happen. And there was kind of a break. Like the weird stuff happened with my twin, but we didn't really get too much deeper into it than that because again, you're in high school and you got all this stuff going on, and it was just kind of chaotic time. But further into high school, I think my junior year maybe, we were having a little social get-together party thing. Somebody had brought along a set of runes and a teeny tiny little booklet that came with it. I don't know that I'll be able to find that exact same set online, but I think they were just plastic runes. They're just black and gold writing on them, and so we were, as a joke, doing like rune stuff, and I was like, oh, I want to try reading for somebody else. So I did a reading for somebody, and I felt like I was bullshitting the whole thing, but they were like, no, that was like weirdly accurate, like this is kind of scary accurate how specific you're being about certain things, so ooh, weird. And so for me that was ooh, interesting, and it kind of brought back some of those thoughts and interests that I had while I was doing the Wicca stuff. Both the boys are here, by the way. If I'm looking down, it's because I'm watching them. So that happened, and then I graduated and life got a lot more chaotic. My life at 19 was pretty tumultuous, so for a good couple of years I just didn't have the time to be able to do it, and by the time I was actually stable enough to start doing it again, I was with a partner that kind of mocked a lot of that stuff before I could even bring it up, and so I was in my first adult relationship. I didn't really know how to assert my boundaries or see my worth or to be able to say, actually, I don't really like that you say that stuff. So I didn't feel comfortable enough to openly practice while in that relationship. Now, pretty much immediately once that relationship ended, I was like, hey, back to it. And pretty much from that point on, I haven't stopped. So that was when I was 22, and now I am 28, almost 29. So it's been 6 to 7 years of pretty strong direct practice with the mishmash here and there prior. So I usually at this point would just say about 7 or 8 years of practice of total time. So when I really was able to start getting into it for real, the way that practice looked is very different from how my practice looked now. It was much more Greek-based than I am now. I still have some of that Greek influence, and I do still incorporate a lot of the Greek style stuff The PGM is definitely a book that I reference every now and then. I still work with Hecate, and I'm not opposed to pantheon mixing and stuff, but back then it was pretty much all just Greek. Now, the Greek stuff I was doing at that time, let's see, that would have been, if I was 22, 2017 or so. Back then it was a lot more like mainly Greek, but it had strong Wicca flavorings to it, and it was sort of that generic witchcraft base. So it wasn't as strongly historically based as my stuff is now. It was a lot of what I could find on the internet. It was starting to get into Discord communities, and at the time I wrote this down. Let's see, I had Aphrodite, Apollo, Athena, and Zeus for sure. I think there was one or two more circling around at various points. I know that Hermes was with me for a little while, but it was pretty core of Greek stuff. I was also very experimental, so while I kind of have a pretty set way that I do spell work and things now, because I was still learning back then, it was really trying out all the different avenues I could. There was jar spells and powders and sprays and making my own oils and candles and whatever else I could get my hands on, because I just wanted to see what works, what do I like, what seems to do well for me, what meshes with the way that I like to work myself. And it was a lot of starting to connect with nature. I was in an area that had great nature paths, and I had a lot of time to myself where I felt open and free, and I had a partner who really supported me and supported that in general. So it was really easy to be experimental, and I think that was really good for my practice, being able to try on all these different things and being able to do some of the research to see that is something that worked for me. I also got really into astrology, and that's a theme that has stuck around, but I thought it was going to be a much stronger presence in my life than it currently is. I am planning to get back to it more strongly, but back then it was definitely like, I'm going to work really hard, I'm going to learn about a bunch of this, and my focus has since shifted, so I've sort of set it to the side for the moment, but back then it was definitely like, astrology has a really strong influence. I never really was very lunar, but I would go with other astrological events like planetary days and hours, and where certain conjunctions are happening, planets moving into certain signs, Mercury retrograde, all that kind of stuff. So the astrology focus is really big, which helped to mesh in with the Greek stuff. I've also changed how I do my Grimoire and Book of Shadows stuff, so that has been a very long journey of figuring out how I want that to go. I plan to do a separate video about this at some point in the future. I did a very short TikTok about it, but basically I would call it my bullet journal of shadows. So how I would describe it is I have a A5 size working journal, and that is where I do journaling and some daily stuff, even just like putting down my schedule, like some regular bullet journaling stuff, mixing in with my witchy stuff. So I have like trying out a new spell or taking notes on a certain book. And then once I feel like that information is pretty well defined for whatever that specific thing is, like notes from a book, I will have taken the notes from whatever book it is, and once I feel satisfied and I've finished the book and I've got them kind of laid out the way I want it to be, I will then transfer that into a cleaner, fresher page on my larger format official grimoire. So I have the working book of shadows, the bullet journal of shadows, and then the grimoire. I also have a digital thing that I use. I use a program called Notion. I love Notion so much. It's free. It's a little hard to work with at first, but if you can get some good templates, they really, really help out a lot. And the nice thing is you can do stuff on your computer and also do it on your phone. So I can keep it with me whenever I go out somewhere. So if I don't happen to have my working journal, I can still do stuff on my phone, enter it in that way. Some of my longer notes, like more of my astrology notes, are in there because there's just so much more. And for a while I was keeping like spells that seem to work out and keeping track of those. So I've done a mixture of the physical books and the digital stuff, which I adore. So if you're interested in more of a digital type book of shadows, I really highly recommend Notion. It's excellent. I really love it. Now, as far as things are currently with deities and things, most of my practice is pretty heavily Norse with some of that Greek influence, but that wasn't really a conscious choice. That wasn't an all at once thing. That was something that kind of happened gradually over time. Freya was the first one to come in really strongly, and the way I describe it to people is the Greek gods are a little bit more poetic. I don't really have a better way to describe it. They just come across as more poetic, whereas the Norse gods kind of kick in your door and say, I'm here right now and you're gonna pay attention. It's a lot more forceful in my experience with how they interact with me. So the difference between them was really clear. Like, I knew that it wasn't Aphrodite that I had been mixing up with Freya. I was working with Aphrodite. Freya comes across very differently. That's what it is. So Freya came in first, very strong, and then slowly over time things just grew more Norse. Early into working with Freya, actually, Frankie had told me that it was around that time that they weren't working with Freya anymore, and so they sent me the jawbone, the fox jawbone that I have for her, and a deck of cat tarot cards. So it just really felt like a good confirmation of this is where you're supposed to be, this is a good direction for you, stay here. At least for now. And it's been a couple of years, so pretty sure that's strong enough to say she could stick around for a while, but yeah, there wasn't really any denying her at that point. Now, Hecate, I don't remember how she came into my life, but I just remember she was there one day, and she has always been a very powerful force. She goes dormant for me is what I would say. Like, she doesn't really leave if I haven't done anything with her for a while, but when I want to bring that relationship back, I definitely have to do some stuff to tell her, hey, okay, I'm coming back around again, so here I am, I'm ready. And so she's been pretty consistent, pretty constant. She is definitely a force to be reckoned with. For the most part, I no longer say that novices should wait on deity work, with the exception of specific ones, including Hecate. She is not very beginner friendly in the things that she asks for and the amount of dedication she asks for and the intensity that she brings. It is you need to be ready for this, and if you're not sure about doing deity work at all, I don't really point you to her direction. She is you are settled in your practice and ready to go. So that is a whole thing. And I mentioned it in my last video, but so more recently I was getting a new candle ready for Hecate, because hers had burned down pretty low and I wanted to refresh hers, and then Freya's candle got really dim because that was lit at the same time. And so I asked, like, hey, what's going on? Do you want a new candle? Like, are you upset that she's getting a new one and you're not? And so the essential answer that I got was, we're supposed to work together. If you're lighting one, light the other. We want to be brought in for the same stuff. It's not that we are the two faces of the same coin, it's we are working as a team with you. And I sat down and I thought about it, and it made a lot of sense because they're both dealing with the dead and with magic and to a certain extent like battle and war and things. The two of them asking to work as a team fit. It really just was like, oh, okay, I understand. I don't see any issues with this. I get it. So currently their candles are actually lit on my altar space right now. And so that is a newer development, even though the two of them have been around for a while. The coming together as a team is an interesting development that I'm really enjoying. Recently, my journey with my craft has involved, as you would have seen in the last video, learning more about my heritage, which has continued to develop from there. Since the time that I produced the video, I have also found out that we are very Dutch and extremely Welsh, and I never knew that. My mom knew, but I just never asked about that specific branch of my family before, and it turns out my great-great-grandmother is Welsh, and that whole side is just Wales. So I pretty much got all of the UK and all of the Scandinavian area, minus Iceland, and I've got Germany and Poland and all the whitest places you could imagine. So that journey has continued, and I think will continue to develop and grow, and I don't know the exact direction I'm going with all of it, but I'm going mainly Scandinavian, Denmark, Norway region, but still researching other parts. So the heritage stuff has been interesting. That has led to a lot more folk magic stuff. So I'm starting to do a lot more research into Scandinavian folk magic, folk healing, folk belief, all of that. That is definitely a strong direction I'm going at this exact moment. That and Freya and Hecate link me more into spirit work. I've always kind of called myself spirit deaf. I find it very difficult to get strong messages from spirits. It's much more subtle than I would like it to be, so I'm working on developing that more currently. I'm also doing a lot more with herbal allies. I did just buy myself some cute new plants. They're not herbs, but I've been missing having greenery in the house. I've missed having plant friends around, so I went out and bought 2 cat-safe plants because these 2 idiots like to munch on things. So if they're gonna munch, it might as well be safe if they're gonna be stupid. The most recent development in my craft that I'm really enjoying so far is what you can see today. I've been veiling a lot. I really enjoy it. It has made me feel very safe. It has made me feel a lot calmer, and it made me realize that I didn't really have the words for it, but even though I work from home, being at work feels like an invasion of my space by taking up my time. I have to work, I have to make money, I have to afford my life, you know, having an apartment and all. So even though I'm at home, I've been veiling all day at work because it still feels like I need protection of my space through the use of my time going to a job. And I like my job, I do. But it has made me feel nice to be able to have this little extra layer. And it's kind of cute. I like mixing and matching with my outfits. And I took the time to enchant all of them to be generally protective, but also with specific uses. I don't really have the words to explain how all of them work. Like this green one, I'm having a hard time trying to think of the words to explain, but it is a protection at its base, but also good for growth and kind of like springy, fresh vibes. It is to make me feel more approachable and light without feeling like people can come walk all over me, if that makes sense. And this one I got from Frankie, as well as my other 3 silk veils. I love them so much. Something about the long veil has made me feel so like elegant and regal. It's kind of like the effect of having long hair without having to grow my hair out because I don't like how I look with long hair. But I like this. And if I'm having a bad hair day, it being silk doesn't totally destroy my hair and it covers up the parts of my hair I'm not liking at the moment. So it's a double whammy of protection from things and protection from my own brain where I feel gross and ugly with my hair being bad. I'll do a mini veil tour right now because I really like them. Frankie also has a video on veiling here that you guys can go watch. It's a really good video about that entire concept. They also talk about their own veils, but I really like the ones that I have because they are cute. My favorite by far is this beauty. I'm in love. I'm in love. I wore this one for like 3 days straight. When I first got it, it is so beautiful. It made me feel like a queen. It made me feel so like important and smart and interesting. It completed the picture for me in a way I couldn't describe to anybody who doesn't veil, but it was just like, I found it. And all of them are long, so they all sit like this. This is how I wear all of these silk ones. So I had the pattern to break things up. It's got the black and the gold and the white, which I really like that specific color pattern. Good stuff. And so I enchanted this one for protection and to help me with bringing in financial abundance and to help with career stuff and job stuff and just general money magic. My deep red one here is protection and allure. So sort of that like dark vampire kind of feel. Love it. It's just a very simple color, but it's beautiful. I really like how it looks with my skin. Lovely. And then just really strong protection is your classic black. Can't beat it. It is the way to go for me for protective stuff. I love it. I also use pretty typical normal bandanas, so these sit much shorter. They're more like back here, kind of like if you're thinking about cleaning a house. Light, come back, please. If the sun comes out immediately, I'm gonna be mad. I have the shorter veils. I have a dark blue one. These are all just general protection, but dark blue, very classic, that paisley kind of pattern. I've got red. I actually have 2 red ones, but the other one's in the other room. So red, classic, bright, fun, colorful. And then I saw this purpley, pale, lavender kind of color. I'm not really much of a pastels babe, but I really wanted to experiment with it. I posted a picture of myself on Instagram wearing this the other day, and it really did make me feel refreshed and invigorated, and was one of the first ones where I was like, oh, okay, maybe veils. So I bought this one at the store for a couple of bucks and then immediately went on Frankie's site and bought the other 4. So I've been doing that. I'm really enjoying veiling. It makes me feel really powerful in a different kind of way, and I like what it does for my energy and for my practice. It's nice. And I like being able to have a variety to accessorize with and to be able to do, you know, this veil for this spell, and then I use a different one for this other one. So I could wear the black veil for a protective spell. I could wear the gold one for a money spell. It's nice. It just adds a little bit of extra oomph, and that's really fun for me. Now for the real witchy stuff, in terms of what I actively do for workings, speaking of, most of my workings these days focuses on oils, powders, and candles. Now for the most part, I have these 7-day candles that I really like. They take a lot longer to burn down, but that's just what works for me. I also will use tea lights and some shaped candles. Like I bought these spirally ones not too long ago. I like that for uncrossing because I think of it as like winding down or unbinding. You could also use it for binding. That's kind of interesting. So like winding somebody. So you could think of it as like winding cord around somebody to tie them up. Could be a good use. And then there's like figure candles and things like that. But candles are really something that I use a lot. I'm trying to find a good, not all that expensive source for either soy or beeswax candles, but most places that sell them are really inexpensive. So if you've got the hookup on not that expensive soy or beeswax candles, please let me know. I'm looking around because right now dollar store prices are about what I can do. I can do a little bit more than that, but man, I've seen something like 40 bucks for a single candle, and while I understand it's a lot of money, so I don't got 40 bucks per candle kind of money. And the nice thing about dollar store, as much as I don't like the paraffin and it being cheaper material, they have a lot of colors, and being as cheap as they are, I appreciate that. So I've got white, red, and green right now. I've gotten blue in the past. Actually, Freya's last candle was blue. Thor's current candle is blue. So I've gotten a good variety from them. I've gotten some similar ones from Walmart before. So if you're looking for the cheap resources, and right now you're in the dollar store is my budget kind of level, Walmart and the Dollar Tree specifically. I've had very poor luck with like Dollar General and stuff. Dollar Tree is the place where it's at. That's the specific one that I go to. I really enjoy making my own oils. I have made myself a money oil, a protection oil, and a spirit communication oil. It seems to be working out pretty well for me so far, even with being as spirit deaf as I am. But I like the process of making my own oils. However, I'm also starting to budget for buying oils from others. So again, if you know a good source for witchy oils, drop it in the comments, let me know. I've got a list right now, but I want to see where others are starting to look for their resources, because I like to support our community as well. If we can share those resources, even if I don't use them, maybe somebody else will. And finally, powders. Can you come back out again, please? I like to make my own powder mixes for my stuff. I'll either use it for, on occasion, a jar spell or poppets or bags. Mainly I do candles, so I'll poke holes in the wax and sprinkle a little bit of this in to make sure that it's not gonna go everywhere or make a fire hazard. But I really like to use my mortar and pestle and crush up my herbs that I pick and make them into specific powders, and then sometimes that powder will go into an oil, so it kind of all works together in the same process here. Sometimes they're a little too strong. I have to work on formulation on occasion of, like I made a truth powder. The spell worked. Sometimes I wish it was more gentle, maybe I should say. Yeah. Sometimes the formulation varies between not strong enough and way too strong. So that is part of that process, but it worked. So that means success, and that's something. I'm starting to lean towards some poppet stuff, but I haven't really done a lot of experimentation with that just yet. I love a good candle, I love fire. I try to be careful with it and safe with it, but you know, a firebug's gonna firebug. As a final note on where my practice seems to be heading currently, with the mixture of spirit work, I'm also starting to look into working more with animal spirits, and I am interested in getting together a bone throwing kit. Right now, I have half the bones from my sweet girl that you guys knew, Thexalia. She passed away a couple years back, and I have half her bones. I split them with her father, so we both have half. I've got some of her spine bits and some of her like leg and arm bones and stuff and her ribs. So I'm thinking of including at least a couple of those. I have a couple of other animal bits. I got some raccoon baculum, and that is the fertility bone is what we'll call it for YouTube censorship standards. And I've got a couple of other things tucked away in various places. I've got a deer jawbone, I have that fox jawbone for Freya. I have what I assume is a deer's like hip joint. It is a broken off piece of bone I found years ago in a small stream, and it's definitely a joint. it's large enough that it has to be from something like a deer size, and that area didn't really have any cows around, so that's the only thing I can think of that is approximately that size that would have something like that. It's a couple of deer parts. I'm looking into getting other things that are sustainably and ethically sourced, but that is also difficult. So I'm letting that be a bit of a slower process right now, but that is something that I'm becoming interested in. That is a direction that I'm starting to go, which I don't know that I ever would have placed for myself, knowing that the spirit deafness is so strong. I always kind of imagined that the spirit work would be something that I leave to others, but right now it feels correct. So that is the direction I am going. I'm also taking a course right now on Scandinavian folk magic stuff. So that's interesting. I'm taking it slow, but it's been fun so far. And I'm just doing a lot of reading of myths and folklore and things, and that has been really helpful for my practice. That's where I'm going, and who knows where I'll end up in another couple years or so. So I think maybe I might make this again another year or two, check in, see what's changed and what's remained the same, because I think it's kind of nice to be able to do that. Frankie has done that with their own, where they've checked in every now and again. They've revisited their own stuff. They've even made comments about parts of their own book they no longer necessarily agree with or have more of a nuanced take at this point. So let it be acceptable that your views and your practice are always going to be changing. Let it be an organic thing. It lives and breathes with you as you learn and grow. That's a really important thing to be able to internalize to help your practice be as authentic as it can be. This is just a fun little casual chat check-in thing. If you want to keep following me for more, I have more videos planned coming soon, so you can subscribe here, you can follow me on Instagram, and I have the link to my Discord community down in the comments if you want to join our crew, because we have a really good time over there. We have great discussions, and it's a really relaxed, casual environment if you're looking for a no pressure kind of witchy community vibe. If you've got any things you want to share with me down in the comments, let me know, because I always want to hear from our community. Otherwise, throw it on Discord. We'll have a good time. I'll see you next time. Have a good day, evening, morning, whatever time it is that you're checking in with this. And blessed be, babes.